They say drama starts where logic ends. Hello and welcome to our channel. Troy here, and today I'm going to talk about our generator problems. And in the end video, I will ask you for your input on what direction we should go moving forward. To bring new viewers up to speed, we're aboard Motor Yacht Wet Pleasures. We are a 1979 58-foot Hatteras Long Range Cruiser, and we have two 15 kW generators. One of them has come to depend on as our primary, and the other is a backup. So our story begins with our first night on board the boat. Imagine that very morning we'd just taken delivery of the boat. This is the first time we're at the helm, and this boat is basically twice the length of any of our previous boats and 8 times the weight. We are traveling in an area we've never been, and frankly we're out of our league here. At the end of the first day, we finally made it back to familiar waters, and we're exhausted, yet completely on edge. We drop anchor, start the port generator, cook dinner, run the air conditioners, and prepare for bed. Laying in bed though, we can hear the soft, soothing rumble of the generator in the background. But wait, we notice that the generator is changing RPMs ever so slightly, and of course the paranoia kicks in. Is that normal? Is that something wrong? As the compressor kicks on and off, I can hear the RPMs fluctuate even more. Again, it's not a big change, but enough that it's noticeable and annoying. And after a broken night's sleep, we wake up and travel 2 hours to our home port, not thinking anything more about the generator. We used the boat a few more times over the next year, mostly taking weekend trips and anchoring out. By this time we're a little more comfortable handling her, and we at least have a basic understanding of the systems aboard. At night we learned to run the other generator. It's newer, its sound enclosure is better, and most importantly the right RPMs remain rock solid. It's our go-to generator, or at least until we take our first 2-week trip to the Upper Keys. Hey YouTube, it is beginning of October 2023. It is a Friday. We're en route, second day of our trip, heading to Elliott Key. And in the background, we're obviously in the ICW, and in the background is the all over beach, and coming up is going to be the all over inlet, sandbar, so forth. So stay tuned. Nothing really exciting has gone on so far. It's hot, so a little windy. That's nice. So Daria's here cooling off. She got overheated. So we'll talk soon. And just like that, one night the generator won't start. Not a problem though. We have 2. But for the remaining couple of days, we're using the backup generator at night. Our minds have become used to the RPM fluctuations until, you guessed it, that generator quits while cooking dinner. Long story short, knowing that this is a mechanical diesel generator, I make the educated guess that it's fuel related. I change out the primary filter and notice it looks pretty dark. Not horribly clogged, but definitely looks like it should be changed. Now picture it's 110 degrees in the engine room while I'm doing this. I've had a cocktail or 2 earlier in the day. I'm literally soaked and dripping with sweat. I decide let's also change out the primary and secondary filters on the generator itself. So I work until I can't take the heat anymore. Picture this, about every 10 minutes when I can't take the heat anymore, I go running out of the engine room onto the side deck and dive straight into the water to cool off. Then back to work and get the system primed. So there's a little lever mechanism on the side of the pump, uses a priming mechanism. It sucks fuel from our Raycor 500 into the pump, and then through the pump into the 2 filters on the generator, and finally into the injection pump. I'm getting nowhere. I've even had the line feeding the injection pump cracked open and let the air out, and I just can't get fuel to flow. After about my 6th time jumping in the water to cool off, I decided to check the fuel level in the number 3 tank, which feeds the generator. Guess what? It's close to empty. So after transferring some fuel between tanks, I get the system primed, the generator starts, but the RPM fluctuations are more noticeable, and the generator does not start as easily. I mean, it normally fired off as soon as you hit the starter, and now it takes a second or two before it catches. By this time, though, we are more accustomed with the boat, how she operates, and the sound she makes. Yeah, the backup generator is a little louder than the primary, and the RPMs are not rock steady, but it's more of a subtle annoyance we've learned to live with on this trip. And so now it's the morning to leave the keys and head back home. We're making coffee when suddenly the generator stops, and for the life of me, I can't get it to prime again. What the f? Now I have two non-running generators. I give up. We start the engines and head home. The first night we stayed at a marina so that we had shore power, and the next evening we were back on our home dock. We spent the next couple of weeks cleaning the boat, straightening things out, and generally recovering from our first big trip. So remember that primary generator that would not start? Well, it turned out to be an easy fix. The electronic lift pump needed to be replaced. And after spending $39.95 at Amazon and about an hour of my time replacing it, it's back up and running, not skipping a beat. Easy fix. Well, feeling confident that I had an easy fix or an easy win, I figured I'd move on to the backup generator. I dug into what would be many month search for the problem and a solution. I couldn't prime the fuel system at all. I bought a small handheld vacuum pump to help me diagnose the problem, and I could easily suck fuel all the way through the system to the injection pump. So I decided it's got to be the mechanical lift pump. Let's back up and talk specifics about this generator. It's a 1979 ONAN MDJF. It's a 15,000 watt mechanical diesel generator. It's original to the boat, so it's 45 years old. It has just shy of 10,000 hours on it. It doesn't leak oil, it doesn't burn oil, and it normally fires up as soon as you hit the starter. I also have 18 years of oil analyses from the previous owner, taken every 3 years, showing the internals are great. We are lucky enough that when we bought the boat, it came with a ton, and I mean a ton of spare parts. Although we still have not been through everything to catalog and organize all the parts. We also have service manuals and parts manuals. So back to the repair. Off comes the pump. And for those of you old enough or know enough about older cars, the pump resembles a generic diaphragm fuel pump powered by the camshaft. This style fuel pump could be found on any pre-90s car, and back in the day, a new pump would have probably cost around 30 bucks. So as I'm inspecting the pump, I can tell the diaphragm's good, but the check valves, which allow fuel to only flow in one direction, are bad. Well, that explains why I couldn't get it to prime. It was apparently sucking fuel in, but on the next stroke, it was pushing the fuel back out. Well, okay, it was simple enough. Let's get out the parts manual, and yeah. Parts obsolete, no longer available from ONAN. Go figure. But after a couple of Google searches, I can get one for a mere $900 on eBay. You're shitting me. Now I'm mad, but I get it. It's a 45-year-old part, but at the same time, I know these parts were not proprietary to ONAN. I just got to look harder and deeper. Sure enough, I find an AC Delco pump that very much resembles. It's only $79, but the problem is it's not close enough. But I do find a company that rebuilds them. It's Egg Machine out of, I believe, Washington, the state of Washington on the West Coast. I send them some emails, photographs. They say great. I send them the pump. A week later, I have it back with a spare set of check valves and an extra diaphragm, all for about 200 bucks. A couple hours later, I had the pump on, the system prime, runs, and starts like a champ. But the feeling of success is short-lived. We used the boat for several more weekend trips and then a month-long trip to Key West. We used the generator during the day to give the primary generator a break so that we can check the oil levels and whatnot. As time goes on, the RPM fluctuations are getting very noticeable, and they're happening only under load. Now they're happening under no load. I feel like I just can't win. Luckily, the primary generator has been running flawlessly, And after a long trip, I feel determined to fix this thing once and for all. I scour the internet forums, I'm consulting the service manuals. In the meantime, we have finally finished the inventory of our spare parts, and son of a bitch, we have not one, but two, I say again, two brand new fuel pumps in our inventory. Thank God I didn't buy the one I found on eBay for $900. Upon consulting the service manual, I tried adjusting the governor sensitivity lever. All right, so we're working on the governor here. And I've noticed some stuff has been cobbled together. So the top part of the linkage, when it's tight, won't match up with the ball down there. And the previous owner has basically taken a screw, Phillips screw, and a bunch of washers and shit. So there's no play here. Luckily, I have a boatload of parts here, and this bag's obviously already been opened, but we've got the ball ends and the rod ends and the proper part here. In stages from its lowest setting to its highest, each time I make an adjustment, the base RPM is either lowered or raised, and I have to keep loosening or tightening. Instead of locking nuts to keep the engine RPMs close to 1800 RPM, so the generator is producing 60 hertz of power. But the surging or the fluctuation is still there. Service manual also recommends replacing the tensioning spring, which provides constant pressure on the governor arm. Sure enough, I've got one of these in inventory. And I noticed the old spring is a couple millimeters longer than the new one, so it's stretched out. Surely this is the cause, a weak spring. Yeah, nope, same problem. So I'm wondering, are the internal workings of the governor simply worn out? Is it time for major surgery? I go down the rabbit hole looking for alternative solutions. Can I convert the mechanical governor to an electronically controlled one? Add an electric throttle actuator? Well, I find the parts, and good news, they're readily available and only cost me a couple of $100 to do the conversion. Something inside of me says, wait, there's something else going on here. How do I isolate the governor to see if it's truly the problem? So I decide to disconnect the linkage between the throttle and the governor and lock the throttle in one spot with no load on the governor and no load on the generator. And what do you know? The fluctuations are still there. Nothing has changed. So it can't be the governor. It has to be fuel related. Is it the pump I replaced? Did it take another crap? Start thinking. You know, the fuel system needs to be primed before starting. It's taken a while to prime the system, and sometimes it takes a couple of seconds of cranking before the engine starts. Is air getting into the system somewhere? If there is, that would account for many of these symptoms. You know, electric fuel pumps aren't expensive. If I temporarily put in an electric pump, I'll be able to see or hear if there's air sucking into the system, because you'll hear it change in the motor. So we get a cheap electric pump off Amazon, and after a couple of hours of digging through a box of fuel fittings, I have the electric pump temporarily installed, and we start the engine. Holy crap, what do you know? It fires right up, and after some adjusting the base RPMs to 60 hertz of power, we're good. There's only about 50 RPMs of fluctuation. We've come full circle. We're back where we started from when we bought the boat almost 2 years ago. Now, my only question is, do I permanently install the electric pump and go through the trouble of wiring it in properly? Or do I throw one of the new original mechanical pumps back on? I decided to sleep on it for a few nights and decided I'm still not happy. The other generator runs perfectly. It has no RPM fluctuation. Why isn't this one running perfect? I mean, it's so close. I decided to look things over one more time, and guess what I finally spotted? Air bubbles in the Raycor fuel filter. If you hold the flashlight just right at the base of the Raycor, you can see a steady stream of tiny air bubbles in the Raycor running from the drain valve up. Could this be? Had I found the root of the problem, the cause of all the drama? Well, I began messing with the valve, but I couldn't get the bubbles to stop. In fact, I think I was making them worse. So after a short trip to our local boat owner's warehouse at a cost of $110, I hoped I had my salvation in hand, a new fuel bowl. The install went smoothly. I reprimed the system, and the moment of truth had come. Was the problem finally fixed? Well, I had the wife start turning on each AC unit one by one, and finally the hot water heater were pulling in excess of 50 amps, and the RPM was holding rock steady. Now my question to you is, should I go back to the mechanical fuel pump or go through the trouble of wiring the electric fuel pump so that it has a priming switch, figuring where to tap into the control panel for the power while trying to start, and then finally the running circuit. And additionally, we have to figure out an automatic disconnect should the engine stop running. Let us know in the comments what you think we should do. And I truly hope my trials and tribulations helps someone else out there diagnose their old generator. So please take a moment to like and subscribe, and remember, stay wet.